Hello, everybody, and welcome back to season 4, episode 2 of Mindclickers, where it's time to click both heads here in 2023. Today, I am joined by a longtime best buddy, former Renegades Partnership Manager, now Technical Operations Coordinator at Track 160, Nick Carti Stephanides. How you going, brother?
Good mate, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm glad we're finally able to get on and have a chat.
Yeah, it's crazy. Been a long time coming, I think. It's definitely been discussed prior, but look, we've made time. We've figured out both schedules, and we're aligned. We're here.
We're here, we're ready to rumble, and I'm ready to pick your mind.
Go for it, mate. Absolutely, all yours.
So as we always do on Mind Clickers, as everyone knows, we sort of love to start wider, then sort of narrow in gradually. So let's take it way back. Give us a flashback. How did you, I guess, get into esports? Sort of as a kid, and how did that sort of start to, snowball into what led you into a career in esports?
Well, it's quite funny, as a young fella, you spend a lot of your time like many other people, playing video games with your mates, and it's all fun and games, and some games I was really, really good at, some games I just wasn't. And, was not aware of, growing up at all, even into my, mid to late teenage years, that there was a esport ecosystem, if you want to call it that, or a more serious level than competition ecosystem for, different titles and games you played. I grew up with my mates, played FIFA, Call of Duty. I had a pretty standard entry into esports, but I soon realized quite quickly, and a lot of my friends had told me, Nick, you're a little bit better than everyone else at certain games. Do you want to try esports? I said, esports. What on earth is esports? And I sort of had that that late. I don't want to say boomer approach, but that out of esports mindset of I don't really know what it is. Do I want to try it? Like
Mm,
what is it? So, I ducked deeper into, what esports was and did some research as much as a 16-year-old can do actual research. Sort of ducked into it, and I was playing FIFA at the time, was probably the game I was playing the most. Yeah, as I said, I'd like to think I was a little bit better than my mates, although they'll probably tell you extremely differently, but it was one of those things. And then I just started entering small competitions, online PlayStation competition, game battle competitions, just, stuff like that. Started off with everyone else, and
mm.
after winning a couple of 5 people, 5-person individual group tournaments, I was like, all right, let's see if there can be something in this. And I was okay. I wasn't great, on that esport competitive level. I was verified to play in tournaments, but never was able to make the cutoff for LAN events or international events or nothing like that. I was skillful enough to compete, but not skillful enough to make a LAN or to make that type of level. And even to this day, my mid 25s now, 10, 11 years later, I still think I can do it.
Mm.
Uh, and I was a lot quicker reaction wise when I was 16. So if there's no hope for me then, I can safely say there's definitely no hope for me now. But look, yeah, it was a very standard entry into esports, gaming and whatnot. And then, the more I ducked into it, Lockie, I learned, organizations, esport organizations, sponsors,
Mm.
partners, you know, owners, co-owners. I learned the whole ecosystem, over time, and I had different experiences in the ecosystem that I'm sure we'll touch on later that led me to the knowledge I have now. So yeah, it was a pretty basic. It was a pretty basic intro. It was a pretty
Yeah.
basic.
Yeah, no, for sure. I feel it's like almost a stock standard throughout. Sort of a lot of guys nowadays growing up on COD 4, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2, and that sort of gives you a taste of esports and sort of what it is at its sort of ground
Mm,
level. Obviously, COD's sort of transpired into sort of a different genre nowadays in terms of the
yep.
competitive scene. But do you ever think and sort of reflect like if you had have stuck with the path of playing and playing and maybe grinding away, where you might be nowadays if you would be
Yeah,
a
look,
current player?
that definitely drifts into my head every now and then when I get a bit nostalgic.
Yeah.
I definitely think maybe if I stayed, playing Call of Duty, as I said before, I played Call of Duty with my mates, Black Ops 2, we all had, I'm not sure if it was called ranked play back then, but there was that competitive mode. And,
Mm,
I was in the top, as top as, the ladder would take, I was top 3, top 4 for quite a while. So I sometimes tell myself, yeah, if I stuck to a path, I could have been better. But considering how my journey in esports outside of esports turned out, I really wouldn't change how I did anything.
mm,
Sure, I look back and I think, yeah, maybe I could have made a living out of it. But at that age, at that time, I'm all about having fun. I wasn't more so seriously enough about competitiveness and winning. Back then, back on what year it'd be, 2014, early 2010s, whatever you want to call it. No one really knew you could make a living out of doing, playing Call of Duty. Even the people playing competitively or ranked play, if you want to call it that. Not even they
Mm.
knew that you can make a living out of it. If times were different and I knew what I knew back then naturally, I definitely would have stuck at it. Content creation, posting YouTube videos, whatever, whatever. But yeah, look, all in all, I think I'm sort of happy how it turned out, regardless if I didn't make a living out of it or not.
Yeah, well, I think that's the most important thing, sort of appreciating the journey along the way, and whether you go into the pro pathway, and to be fair, as it already is, it's such a very minority of
Mm,
gamers that actually enter into a pro pathway. You think of pro teams, you think of Rocket League. There's three players on a team, and how many are in the top levels, right? So it is a sort of a very tricky domain, but as long as you can sort of at the end of the day appreciate the journey you've had and where you've ended up, then that's the main thing, right?
correct, correct. I think yeah, it's just one of those things, I suppose. You don't dwell on it too much, and you live, you learn, you have fun along the way. I think that's all part of the process.
For sure, definitely. Now, you mentioned earlier, sort of, you had a bit of a taste test of organizations, and you started to sort of travel and sort of not to travel, but traverse into the organizational world, and what it means to be an esports organization. Obviously, I met you on Renegades, but sort of, how did that sort of snowball into Renegades?
Well, it was quite an interesting thing. So once I realized, and I realized pretty quickly that I definitely didn't have the caliber to make a living out of it and play professionally. I
Mm,
sort of best interests and talents outside of esports and gaming. At the time growing up, we're talking maybe only 6 years ago, maybe. I was at university, studied a Bachelor of Sport Management.
mm,
Obviously, my thing there was business. I grew up in a very sales household.
right,
I didn't get the conventional, everyone gets to go camping, go fishing. I spent most of my time crawling into my dad's office, listening to him do, sale meetings and pitches and all the rest
right.
of it. So that's sort of how I grew up, and I'm very thankful for that in the way that my life's turned out now. So that was a big thing for me: partnerships, sales, and I sort of wanted to do the best of both worlds. I wanted to be able to do sales and do esports. And I sort of realized quite quickly after doing some research, all these organizations have players they have to pay for,
Hmm.
they've got graphics they have to pay for, video editing, etc., etc. They have to fund the organization as itself. Most organizations are looking to break even or make profit.
Hmm.
So, I was like, okay, maybe I can put the two and two together. So I tried to do that as best as I could, reached out to, it was like cold calling when you get a first sales job. I was
Mm,
just reaching out to Twitter organizations, through an Instagram, through Facebook, just messaging saying, look, this is who I am, this is what I've studied. I've got prior experience outside of, esports and gaming doing sales, and partnerships and stuff like that, more traditional sales and partnerships. Is there any way, you can give me like a trial or, take a look at my CV, stuff like that. And
mm,
got really, really lucky with a fantastic organization out of the UK called Omen Origins. They
hmm.
were mainly Call of Duty based, that old school type of organization, Call of Duty montages and
Yeah.
all the rest. They wanted to move into esports and competitive gaming. And they said, look, we're looking to purchase a team. Maybe can you help out with some sales? Try help us soften the blow, if you want to call it that, for the owners going out of pocket. Because
Mm,
if anyone knows, it's actually really expensive to run an organization, especially if you're looking into that esports and gaming, sort of venture. Sure, we'll touch on that later, but it's a very expensive thing. So they got me out doing sales. I was able to get them enough money where it was good enough for the owner to go a little bit out of pocket, plus the sales that came on board. And I sort of just spent my time there learning as much as I could about the esport ecosystem. It was a completely different ecosystem to more your traditional sales.
mm,
uh, different mindsets, different abilities, different, budgets, different awareness, different stuff like that. So different approaches. So it was a real learning curve, and it was all due to experiences and whatnot. So I spent I think about 3 or 4 months there. Unfortunately, the team didn't play as well as we thought. Typical, I wouldn't say typical, but organizational esport activities. These things can change. So my time was there up, and through them I met a good friend still to this day called Xander Clive. Um, he started an esport organization based down in Canada.
Mm,
called Luck Reserve. Again, more of that traditional esports type of organization with, the traditional Call of Duty montages. Again, wanted to move into esports and gaming, make that transition to competitive gaming.
mm,
Um, did where I could again there with sales, partnerships, etc., etc. Was able to, provide. At that time it was for me traditional partnerships or promo codes, or not that real funding ability at that level, but more of the to get their feet off the ground type of activities.
mm,
So that's sort of what I dealt with, and that was becoming, I wouldn't say easy for me, but I became quite natural at it.
mm,
Obviously, coming from a sales background, and then after Luck Reserve, I decided I wanted something more out of it. I sort of understood what needed to be done for a caliber team that, had that backing. I had that background. I really took my chances. I sort of risked my whole career, if you wish to call it that, on the fact that I wanted to move away from the team and maybe try something on my own, or
mm.
try, land myself at a bigger organization, to better myself and better them, and sort of just have a win-win all the way around. Um, and it's actually a really embarrassing story. I'm not sure if I've actually ever told you this, but I applied. I saw Renegades looking for partnership managers
Mm.
through Hitmarker. For those of you who don't know what Hitmarker is, I'm sure many of you do, but it's a place to find esport and gaming related jobs. Fantastic sites. Definitely haven't paid any for promotion on this, but I definitely do vouch for them. But I actually applied for the job, Lachlan, and oh, this is embarrassing. But I applied and forgot to attach my resume.
Oh, heck.
So it was a bit embarrassing because I really wanted the job. I looked at the job description, really liked what I saw,
Yeah.
liked the freedom and the capabilities I got, and the ability to prove myself. And I applied and forgot to attach the resume, which was a bit of an L, if you want to call it that. It was a bit of an awkward moment, and you can't go back and do it twice.
Yeah.
So I was sort of stuck with what I got. But yeah, look, it was one of those things, and I ended up going on Twitter and saying, "Oh, looking up Renegades partnership director." I was trying to get a hold of anyone just to say, "Look, I applied, but I forgot my resume. Resume if you wanted it." Couldn't find anyone at the time, uh, and yeah, just it sort of went dead for about 3 4 months. I was a bit unsure if I'd ever get the opportunity. One morning, I received a follow on my through Twitter, and there was a direct message sitting in the inbox, and it said, "Nick, we saw you applied. We've heard of your past deals and your past abilities. Would you like to jump in a call?" And mind you, myself, like you, Lachlan, based in Victoria, of Australia, a call for them was, me jumping out of bed at 3 a.m. But,
Yeah.
I was hungry for it. So I'd leapt out of bed.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say leapt, but slothed out of my bed to get to where I wanted to be. Chucked on the headset, chucked on a shirt. I'm not going to say how clean it was. Regardless, it was a shirt,
Yeah.
made it all professional, and they gave me the opportunity. So I'm very thankful for that opportunity. And then the story of myself at Renegades working, knowing, getting to know you and working somewhat alongside you, and you helping me helping you. And yeah, look, it was a fantastic experience. Would definitely go back and do it all again if I had the chance. 100%. 100%.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a crazy story to sort of be sitting around for such a long time because, most people sort of maybe even forget about roles like a month or 2 months. But,
Yeah.
the fact that they actually followed up, yeah, up the gates. But
Yeah.
I think that, in a way, do you think that really gave you more of an insight into the industry with obviously Renegades being quite a, at the time, quite a high level, noticeable org, their CS team, obviously the Rocket League team, pretty good team. But, did that give you a bit of an insight into a bit more of a professional organization, would you say?
Yeah, it definitely gave me experience and knowledge in understanding what an elite organization is like at its peak,
Yeah.
right? You've got multiple factors, things I didn't know I needed to realize. There's certain companies I couldn't talk to due to conflicts, things like that where I wasn't aware of that at a lower level. Obviously, I was aware of that in sales, but wasn't aware that was in the ecosystem for esports. So I learnt a few things on the way, got to teach other people a few things on the long way, different how to approach different people, et cetera, et cetera. I got to, be a part of, major deals. I had my ups, I had my downs, like everyone else does in a sales role. It's very, be be the best or don't be. So, I definitely learned quite a lot, and especially with the time zone as well. So I was an obviously Australian Partnership Manager,
Mm.
one of three members in that partnership team, and it was quite a unique time zone to be working in. Our morning chats were, 2, 3 a.m. or 5, 4 a.m. my time.
Yep.
Update sales meetings, pipeline meetings, you name it. They were all quite conventional for everyone else, and then for me, I really had to chalk the sleep schedule, which is quite hard, especially if you want to talk to Australian business people, potential sponsors and
Mm.
partners, investors. You're talking to these groups of people on a 9 to 5 basis in Australia. On the contrary, you're doing all your sales meetings, your update pipelines at a time that's 9 to 5 for the other side of the planet.
Mm.
So it was quite a hard balance, and it was something I really had to. I was pretty much on night shift, if you'd want to call it that.
Yeah.
I was on a night shift role, and it's something I should have thought of, and I didn't think of, and it was something I just had to learn and adapt, and push my way through. So, it was an experience. I definitely, as I said, would do it again. But yeah, it definitely gave me a big insight. Definitely gave me a big insight. Hundred
Yeah,
percent.
for sure. And I guess one thing I'm really curious about, as you sort of mentioned it from your perspective, the esports ecosystem, like you mentioned earlier, is very vast and domain. And I think the biggest thing we can compare in the esports system is regions, right? Obviously, the
Yeah.
Renegades being, primarily based out of North America, but obviously having teams within Oceania. From its standpoint, from your perspective, how do you see a North American org being different towards an org that's primarily just based in Oceania?
I think, unfortunately for the organization, it comes down to just region based. Now,
Yeah.
what I mean by that is, and people might see a bit confused when you say NA versus OC, it's not one versus the other. That's the wrong way to look at what I'm going to be saying.
Mm.
You have to understand that a lot of the partnerships, the backing, the investors, the success of the organization comes from obviously these types of individuals, sponsors, and whatnot,
Mm.
but they all come from outside of esports. Now, North America is a very esport friendly and developed country,
Yep.
or region, if you want to call it that, right? It's very developed. It understands esports and understands its possibilities for people and individuals. It
Mm.
understands what needs to be done. Unfortunately, here in OCE, and forgive me, I'm trying to chalk my way through some lighting because it's gotten quite dark here in Melbourne.
Oh, good.
It's one of those things where you have to look at the backing of the nation and region. So OCE is quite it's not quite understood what esports is.
Mm.
And I can give an example on that in a minute. It's not understood of what esports can do. The possibilities, international recognition. Sorry. It's got a lot of different variables, and unfortunately for organisations, you're a culprit of your region's understanding of what you are as not an organisation, but as a business
Yep.
and what you do. So sometimes it's unfortunate. We've got some absolutely star organisations in OCE that have been able to break that mold. You look at Chiefs, Die Wolves. These are organisations that have, been able to compete on international stages and give Australia that oh my god, we're here, and sort of
Mm.
help Australia to understand. All right, this isn't just something your kid is spending time on. It's a future path for many individuals that actually have a pure talent for what they do, whether it's
Yeah.
League of Legends, Counter Strike, FIFA, Call of Duty, whatever it may be. Unfortunately, again, for organizations, you're quite region locked in your success.
Mm.
It's quite a minority that make it through that sort of gap and sort of make it through that bridge compared to NA, where I feel not that not every organization is going to make it to the elite level, but I would like to say, and this is again from an outside point of view, that there's more of an opportunity. Your chances are higher
Mm.
compared to if you were at OCE. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. There's
Mm.
nothing we can do about changing that. We can keep performing as esports, we can keep educating, but unfortunately, this current position we're in, there's quite a lot of understanding, but there's not enough push for it. You know what I mean? There's
Yep.
understanding of what it is now
Yep.
due to massive events like PAX, DreamHack, Game Expo. There's plenty of these events
Mm.
that are coming up. You've got esport bars, you know, all these things are popping up. There's recognition, but there's no push.
Yep.
which, unlike NA, there's push as well, which, they've got college universities, you've got college, you got CRL,
Yeah.
there's college COD, if I had that opportunity here in OCE, good luck getting me out of my bedroom. I would have lived in there. I would have been screaming all day, every day. But again, that's sort of the situation esport organizations and groups are sort of put into, and it's unfortunate, but again, it's something that we learn here in OC to work with.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think from, obviously my perspective, I can see things differently as a coach because I sort of see the, I guess, I don't see the business side of things as much, right? I don't see the ecosystem from a profit making perspective, or I don't
Yeah,
look at it from that sort of angle, just because I don't, obviously sort of associate with that angle. But I
yeah,
think it's a super important thing because, you look at organizations and you look at people who want to start organizations, for example, and especially with NOCE, starting an organization is probably a pretty tricky thing, right? Because, how do you even go about that at the end of the day?
yeah. Look, it's quite a tricky thing, and I think what everyone forgets is there's a lot of money involved. If you're able to put yourself in a position, your brand in a position where you can bring on investors, you can do
Mm,
funding, you can gain sponsorships to back it. It comes down to the whole situation of it's not what you know, right? It's who you know.
yeah.
And that plays a very big part in business, whether it's esports or not. But, you know, I've definitely had my times dabbling in trying to start my own esports organization. And even for myself, in the career that I've had, you know, the sales record I've had, the knowledge that I have, it was extremely hard even for me. Just being able to make people understand and sort
Mm,
of educate them that it's not a gamble, but it is a gamble. You know what I
yeah.
mean? It's quite hard to cut into your own pockets and burn cash. And I know there's a large trend going around on, OCE Twitter regarding esports. If you want to start an esport organization, you may as well just set your cash on fire in front of you and at least you get to see it burn.
Yeah.
But, that's the name of the game. And I think that's where tribute and praise is to people like Chief, Star Wolves. I'm sure I'm missing a bunch off the top of my head already,
Mm,
but, that's where praise, ground zero, there's a lot of praise for these organizations. Mind Freak, don't know how I missed that, but there's a lot of praise for these organizations. They were able to make it through the tough times and into the good times.
mm,
It's not all smooth sailing, they're always not going to be flush, but they're still here after so long of a time in an ecosystem that really chops and changes. So it's a real credit to those who can pull it off, and to those who can't, it's a learning journey because you're not the only person that's wanted to start an esports organization and it's
yeah.
failed. You're not the only one. It just is what it is, and I think that's where certain people come into play, certain roles, certain business roles, partnership managers, people that look after investors, people go out and find investors.
Hmm.
All these types of roles is definitely something that can be looked at and be presented to organizations. But look, it's just one of those things, Lachlan. It's a catch-22. You really want it and you can get it, but if it doesn't happen, it's a learning experience and you just sort of move forward from there.
Yeah. I think the experience and sort of testing it and seeing if it works, and it's almost like, if you don't give it a track, if you don't give it a crack, you don't know, right? And
Correct.
I think that's
Correct.
the most important thing to sort of understand, and maybe even, going in towards starting an esports organization, understanding that maybe if it's easier to have the mindset that, hey, this is going to fail,
Yeah.
because you can sort of take all the hits on knowing these hits are going to come, right?
Yeah.
Rather than sort of going through the process and then having to unexpectedly deal with something that might
Hmm.
be a little bit more harder, than if you already know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think it is a very interesting perspective. And I guess one thing that I was sort of thinking about as you sort of mentioned, sort of experiences and sort of partnerships and sponsorships and all this sort of stuff is, we look towards esports organizations nowadays, and we look to partnerships and sponsorships. And, some sponsorships don't really make a lot of sense for an organization. And I guess, from your experience and from your understanding and maybe even your approach and mindset towards it, is it just worth to take whatever partnership, whatever sponsorship you can get? Is it important to symbolize with the brand and have sort of a joint interest, or is it just a matter of trying to get as much funding as possible?
Look, that's very individual, and by individual I mean the sport organization itself. It's very
Yeah.
individualized in that sense. some esports organizations are in a fantastic position where they can choose brand partnerships and sponsorships in relation to who they are as an organization.
Yeah.
And they have that ability to say, look, no, we're not interested because that doesn't align with our timeline or our methods or our beliefs. Other organizations are just not in that position to negotiate yes or a no.
Yeah.
It's we need something just to survive.
Yeah.
And the the common person in esports will understand that and recognize it. I can think of a handful of things off the top of my head that I saw partnerships that just don't make any sense.
Mm.
But there's always more to face value.
Yeah.
There's always more to that. You know, especially the whole crypto involvement with esports and the crossover,
Mm.
the metaverse, Web
Mm.
3. It's an understandable. Sure, they may not align with the core value, but you have to understand from a business point of view, there is upside to that. Sure, you might cop a bit of a hit on the socials, your engagement might be a bit lower, or it
Mm.
might be even higher, but it's not the reaction you may want it.
Yeah.
Regardless, you've got to at some point stand back from a consumer and start putting yourself in a business set of shoes and just say, look, all right, maybe the business is struggling. Maybe they needed that flux of cash. Maybe this partnership paid up front if that ever happens. But if they do, don't forget to call me. But, it's these things, it's very relative to esport organization situation events.
Mm.
So some might make sense, some might not. A good example is TSM and FTX prior to the crash, right? That it didn't really make sense. A TSM such a large global brand, very renowned, very respectable, very well built, very well maintained. Why go and do a deal with, you know, a crypto? Well, again, look at it from a business side, although the ending I'm sure was not what anyone ever expected.
Mm.
You have to look at it from a business point of view. Maybe they needed the money, maybe they wanted to do a venture, maybe they had an idea that they had in concept, they wanted to put in production.
Mm.
There's multiple things you can think of. So although it may not make sense to the consumer, to the fan, at the point in time you have to understand organizations, although they're for the fans, they're also a business.
Yeah.
Have to start looking at it a bit like that. But it comes and go. There's also some really good partnerships. Some that make a lot of sense, and it's one of those things. You see organizations partnering with Nike because they're going to do you know a nice apparel line. Well, that
Mm.
makes sense. Nike or Adidas or Puma, Lacoste, anyone, Ralph Lauren, like that's Louis Vuitton. It makes complete sense. Stuff like that makes sense, but you also have to look at a financial set as well. So look, it goes both ways, but there's definitely some scenarios where it does make sense, and others you just shake your head and wonder what went on there. But it's all for something. It's never for nothing.
Yeah, for sure. And almost the way that I sort of look at it is, say, for example, you are a new esports organization and you can sort of reach for whatever you want to get, reach for a little bit of funding here or a little bit of there, whatever it is. And you can use that funding to build a team. And then that team can be accelerated into a new level and they can reach a new major or they can go to worlds and that'll maybe bring about new sponsorships and partnerships which may be more closely aligned, right? So it's almost like using that as an investment into the team with the end goal to have better partnerships and
Mm,
different partnerships.
yep. Agreed.
For sure.
Agreed.
Definitely. Um, Now, I know this is an area you've sort of been investigating and having a look into, and I'm very curious to pick your mind about it. And obviously, it's this idea of AI. Now, it is
Hmm.
evolving nowadays. I've been
Hmm.
using a little bit of Chat GP,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and it's it's
Crazy.
it's a bit crazy. So talk to me about AI from your perspective, and I guess within esports, what sort of ways could it be incorporated? Do you reckon?
You know, AI is one of those things, and it's something I've moved into now full time since being, involved in esports and partnership managing and all the rest.
Mm.
It's something quite passionate to me, and it's quite early days in AI development and all the rest of it. So it's a really good time to get in. If you're ever thinking about it, or this isn't a shameless plug, forgive me, but if it's something that you find interesting, now's the time because we're
Yeah.
in that. It reminds me of those early days of crypto.
Mm.
Everyone regrets they didn't get in at the start, knowing what they know now.
Yeah.
This is that same gamble with AI. But in terms of esports, within games and how games are played, you're gonna have to look at stuff like how the games are actually built. I was only talking to a really good friend of mine today in a meeting. We were talking about AI and talking about how it can help assist building games.
Mm.
There might be ways to, quicken up a timeline for a video game. The next Call of Duty
Yeah.
this year's it's a 2-year cycle. If they have an AI assisting building their game with a particular set of algorithms, it may be a one game cycle because
Mm.
they're able to push a game out quicker. Uh, it can help with updates. It can help on the business side of esports. Investigating pipelines, assisting with sales. And I'm not going to sit here and say you just have to kick your feet up on your desk, press a button, and the AI runs about like iRobot and does all your bits for you. But it makes your life easier. Like
Yeah.
it does the pipeline, it does the calculations, it gives you estimations, which in
Mm.
business is critical. And especially in esports, everyone wants to know what's going to happen in the future because that way you can save yourself. And
Yeah.
AI, provides that ability. Sure, the accuracy is a bit hit and miss.
Yep.
Again, variables, we know that. But there are multiple things that the AI can do to assist and just make your life easier. As you said with Chat GPT, like I'm going to come out and say it on this podcast. If you received an email from me in the last week, it wasn't from me. It was from chat. I didn't write it. I set it up as an assistant. I put in a few keywords for the emails, let it write it, I review it, and I hit send.
Mm.
It makes your life easier. It's not here to take over. It's not here to. Sure, there are some things in esports and gamings that it can replace. Human movement and human decisions.
Mm.
You might look at games where there's ability to judge who wins a fight, etc., or wins a battle. Human judging can be replaced with AI judging. How accurate will that be?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. There's 100 variables, but that's all part of the process, and it's definitely nowhere near perfect. But it's an industry that's fluxing, and it can almost have the same crossover, I dare say, as the Web3 to crypto in
Mm.
esports. It's just in a different way. It's not so much funding, it's not so much getting involved with in-game characters and all the rest. It's more about the construction of esports as their ecosystem, and things like ChatGPT, they're this very bare minimum of AI. As you said in the intro, I work for a company that uses, an AI and motion tracking to track, soccer players and athletes all around the globe.
Mm.
Here in Melbourne to, Israeli leagues in the Middle East. It's the bare minimum of what the AI can do. It has endless possibilities, and God, it sounds cliche, but the thing is, it's just true,
Yeah.
right? People come to you Web3 crypto, it's this and that. It's cliche, but the fact is, it's true. You're just sick of hearing about it. So look, it has massive upside potential, but at the same time, it's a flip of a coin, Lachlan. You have
Mm.
your upside, but it also has your downsides. You might see a fair few loss of jobs, in
Mm.
esports business as a player, as a businessman, if you want to call yourself that.
Mm.
Your job's never really secure. And if anyone follows me on Twitter, my timeline's sometimes filled with random 3 a.m. in the fields tweets about how no one's jobs are safe in esports. Look at 100 Thieves.
Yeah.
Look at Face Clan. Anything can happen in a click of a moment. So
Mhm.
AI may eliminate that as a whole. It may already take the jobs away. It's very controversial in that sense, but
Yeah.
it's not here to take over. It's not like iRobot. It's not here to take over and, we're all going to become, the chat GPT what it is to us. It's here to assist and help. So I think there's a massive possibility for crossover. To say where it's going to happen specifically, besides the business side, I can't really tell you. Maybe game development, it's hard to tell because it's not at its peak yet. So it's still early days. Some really high Q person, which is not that hard to be any smarter than me. You can develop something with a couple hundred algorithms, a couple 100,000 algorithms, and make something that changes esports forever. We don't
Mm.
know, but that's the possibility AI has. So it's good, but it's also bad. That's evolution as a whole. I think.
Yeah. The way that I've sort of looked at it and the sort of the way you've described it in that sense is, you sort of mentioned briefly the whole Web3 and crypto integration within esports in comparison to AI. It's
Yeah,
almost like I look at it like a house. There's two houses. One house is the Web3 AI or the Web3 crypto house, and it's a stock standard house, but it's fancy. It's got decorations. It's got a nice TV. In comparison to the AI house, it's maybe a little bit more robust. It's a little bit more structured, and it's being able to maybe be replicated a lot more easier, efficiently. And that's the way I sort of look at AI, sort of, and towards the progression of it, being able to sort of help put systems in place that can be easily replicated, easily augmented onto
yeah,
already existing problems. And I think that is
yeah,
probably the key foundation AI is going to play within esports.
100%, 100%. It's got serious possibilities, but we just need a really smart person to come along and actually show us because, that's all it will take is one serious AI, algorithm, software, product, whatever you want to call it. That's all it will take. I'm sorry if you can hear the dog barking in the background.
That's all right.
Maybe quite loud and likes to chirp at all types of hours. But yeah, look, it's one of those things where it just takes one person to change the game, and I think it'll be changed forever.
Yeah. I guess it's probably too far fetched to say because you take away the human element of it. But do you reckon we're ever going to get to a point in 5, 10 years whereby AI is literally just going to outpace, human players in terms of esports, and we're going to have AI
Mm,
teams versus AI teams?
no,
No.
because as individuals, we won't allow that, right?
Yeah.
There
True.
is a limit. What people forget is we control it. It
Mm.
doesn't control us.
Yeah.
You're in control of your own product. You're in control of your own creation. Now, history will tell you sometimes people don't think the same way, but we are interested in esports and you know we're here to see each other play well. We want to see the Call of Duty lands. We want to see the people win a game 250 to 0, 3-0 and stand up and just let them know about
Let
it.
them know about
We
it.
want to see RLCS regionals and RLCS championships, people getting reverse swept and
Mm.
them standing up and just letting other people know
Yeah.
how they feel, and the noise of the crowd and how it makes you feel and going to these events in person. We as humans, we as evolution shouldn't, and I feel we won't allow it to take over to that extent.
Yeah.
But sure, it'll come to the extent of maybe an AI is training you on how to become better.
Mm.
Maybe unfortunately, like you're out of a job. We don't know, right?
Hmm.
But you know, that's not 5, 10 years away. That's further than that.
Mm.
We also have to understand that it was like crypto at some point.
Mm.
Not everyone was very acceptant of crypto in its first 5 to 7 years of a startup, right? Everyone, oh, you're into crypto, or you're a scammer, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
Sure, that's out there. That's out there. That's factual, but not everyone was so acceptance of it. And I think with AI and what it resembles, obviously movies, I keep saying I robot, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's as close as I can get it to make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we're not very acceptance of change as
Mm.
individuals, as humans.
Yeah.
So it'll be sure the product will be out there, but it doesn't mean it will be in our face doing our thing. So I think we're looking at a decade plus. A
Okay.
decade plus. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. No, definitely very interesting. I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see the sort of the progression, because we think, and I guess we look at esports now and we look 5 years ago, it's not like it is now, right? So
Yeah.
even within this industry, it's rapidly growing, it's rapidly expanding. So it's only going to be even more interesting to see where it is in the next 5 years.
No, look, it'll be something special. It'll be something special. Someone will come up with something amazing, but again, for it to adapt and take over our place, and you're not watching Call of Duty players play each other. You're watching, AIs go at it. We won't allow that as fans, as individuals.
Mm,
Esports is our bread and butter. It's our love. It's, we get up 4 in the morning, we check notifications. Is there anything we can watch?
mm,
We're looking for that human on human activity and that emotion that comes with esports.
yeah,
There's nothing funnier than watching a CDL game go on. He goes to turn and shoot someone and he realizes he's out of ammo.
yeah,
Like, there's comedy in that. You don't
yeah.
get that with the AI because the AI would know to reload two
Reload.
shots earlier.
Yeah.
You got to look at it like that. So there's a part of it, there's a part of human error we actually enjoy. So I don't see that happening for a long time, but when it does, we'll all know about it. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. I really appreciate that insight, Nick, because I think that a lot of people wouldn't really have that, I guess, key understanding yet. Maybe some of the listeners, sort of understanding of AI and obviously that sort of human element aspect I actually hadn't even thought about. So you do raise a very good point there, which I think a lot of people listening are going to really appreciate for sure.
No, look, it's one of those things where you just got to remember it is crazy technology.
Mm,
If everyone listening, it is coming. Don't don't ignore it. It's coming, but we can take our time with it. It's gonna be a good decade before it's even partially accepted. Governments have to regulate it. Look at crypto. That's still not regulated, and that's been around for what, a good part of 10 years now,
yeah.
right? So even that's still not regulated. They're only just getting around to regulating it after what happened with FTX.
Mm,
So you look at that, AI is just in that early beginning stage. We've got a decade, maybe even 2 decades before regulation starts happening. So I wouldn't worry about, it, but I'd definitely get in it, research it. If you love it, try find a job or a role in it. Maybe even try learn programming, try build something yourself.
mm.
Something as simple as, the most basic single, two, three, five, 10 lines of algorithm for an AI and just see where the journey takes you. It's all about having fun on the way. If you're not having fun on what you're doing the wrong thing. 100%.
Perfect. An absolute banger to sort of almost wrap the episode up there on, I think, a really good insight into, I guess, the possibility, but also maybe even a bit of advice sprinkled in there along the way.
Look, I'm all about wise wisdom. You gave me plenty of it when we worked together, so I can only try to repay the favor, mate.
Ah, love it. Absolutely love it. Now, you mentioned your socials a little bit before. Where can everyone listening find you? Chuck a few rants out at 4 a.m.
Yeah, sure. Definitely. He doesn't, so I don't expect anyone else listening to read it either. But Twitter is Nicholas Carti, Nicholas, and then Carti, Carty, much like the artist.
Yep.
Uh, that's probably the main one. My LinkedIn will just be my full name, so Nick Stephanides. Feel free to shoot me a message with questions. Whatever it may be, feel free to pick my brain. Those are the two main ones. I know I don't have a TikTok. I know there is a TikTok with Nick Carty out there. It's not me. It's all right.
You've been sniped.
Yeah, I think I've been IRL sniped. I think someone's catching on to my extreme popularity, Lachlan.
Uh
If
huh.
I was a footballer, Lockie, I could have been a model, but I'm not. So I think people are just trying to hedge their bets on that.
Yeah, yeah, I got you. All right, lovely. I'll also chuck them in the episode description below. So for everyone
Perfect.
listening, you can chuck the link there and check Nick out and chuck a message if you are keen to learn more about AI partnerships, everything within the esports world, and I guess what's here to come. But yeah, Nick, look, this was a sick episode, really providing me with a bit of an insight on stuff I'm not too familiar with, and I'm sure I know an insight into this world that a lot of other people wouldn't really know as well. So your knowledge and sort of experience and understanding within this field, within partnerships, within AI, is very much appreciated, and I say it on behalf of the viewers, appreciated from their behalf as well.
Now, look, it was an absolute honor to be here. As I said, it was a long time in the making. Very happy that our calendars finally aligned. As I said, if it's not my knowledge you want to absorb, previous episodes from Mind Clickers. Lachlan's always got some great stuff. I know that the future's big for him and Mind Clickers, so stay tuned for more, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess if you have made it this far into the episode, we hadn't really talked about it, but obviously, you are sort of coming on MyClickers and joining me on this venture as a strategic advisor as well. So, I'm looking forward to sort of where we can build this journey together and sort of how we can branch out globally and expand MyClickers into all the listeners worldwide.
No, look, it's going to be a fantastic journey. If it's anything like how our previous relationship went down at working with each other at Renegades, we're going to set this place on fire 100%. This place is going to blow. So I'm keen for it. I can't wait.
Love that. Definitely. That's for sure. All right, Nick. Well, I appreciate you jumping on for today's episode. And, make sure to, I don't want to say make sure to have a good one because that just sounds just weird and not
Well, it is
polite,
9 p.m. It is 9 p.m., Lachlan. So I don't know how much of a good one I'm going to have, mate. Probably a shower and some food and go to bed, mate. But look, I will have a fantastic rest of my night. I hope you do too.
Awesome, Nick. Thanks very much for jumping on and we'll see you in the next one.
Perfect. Appreciate it, mate. Have a good one.
Thank you.